slip road to the M74 at Junction 1 Maryville remains restricted due to emergency bridge repairs. The on-slip from the A721 to the M74 southbound is also closed, causing delays, so please plan ahead. In Sunderland, on the A19 southbound, expect disruption due to a broken-down vehicle between junctions with the A1231 and the A183. In Gloucester, the M5 northbound between junctions 15 and 14 has one lane closed due to a road traffic collision. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast commuters face disruption between Rugby and Coventry. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good evening to you and welcome to Farage with me tonight, your host, Martin Daubney. Well, the moment is finally here.
The bit that I don't understand is you pleaded guilty.
Yeah.
Were you bullied into that in some way?
Yes, tonight is the night that we bring you Nigel Farage's bombshell interview, exclusive sit-down with Lucy Connelly. You'll also want to stick around for the shocking answer to this question.
Draw the line, Lucy. Do you think in retrospect that what you said was insightful?
And with the Donald Trump state visit underway and imminent, you'll also want to hear what she has to say about this.
To Washington a couple of weeks ago and appeared before the House Judiciary Committee. I wanted you to come with me, but your terms of release wouldn't allow it.
Meanwhile, back in Westminster, Keir Starmer is once again on the ropes and he's battling to save his political career.
Had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
And to make matters even worse,
for the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order.
Yes, the Prime Minister continues the battle to save his political career as yet another migrant deportation flight to France is cancelled. It's a pilot scheme, but the pilots can't even take off. That's all to come, but first, here's your latest news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Martin, and good evening to you. Our top stories. It's emerged Lord Mandelson was appointed ambassador to the United States before he was fully security vetted. The Foreign Secretaries revealed Mr Mandelson was subjected to due diligence checks, but only underwent in-depth vetting after being announced in the job. Yvette Cooper made the admission ahead of a 3-hour emergency debate on the Prime Minister's handling of the affair in the Commons earlier, where the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, accused Sir Keir of ducking the debate. She urged the Prime Minister to apologise to Jeffrey Epstein's victims and challenged him to provide clarity over what he knew and when.
The Prime Minister needs to come clean about what he knew and when he knew it. Yes. Not send his junior ministers to cover for him. The Prime Minister needs to publish the Mandelson-Epstein files in full. The Prime Minister needs to take responsibility for the appointment of Lord Mandelson as ambassador to Washington. But the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, is not here because he is hiding from Parliament, hiding from questions.
Actor and director Robert Redford has died at the age of 89. Redford was one of Hollywood's leading men in the 1970s after starring in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and The Sting, for which he won an Academy Award alongside his good friend Paul Newman. In a statement, his publicist said the actor died in his sleep at his home in the mountains of Utah, in the place he loved, surrounded by those he loved. Donald Trump has suggested the UK may get improved terms on a trade deal. The US President made the comments ahead of flying to the UK for his state visit, where he will spend time with the King at Windsor Castle tomorrow and the Prime Minister on Thursday. He says Sir Keir Starmer is doing a great job and has praised the King, referring to him as his friend.
Well, my relationship is very good with the UK, and Charles, as you know, who's now King, is my friend. And it's the first time this has ever happened where somebody was honoured twice, so it's a great honour. And this was at Windsor. They've never used Windsor Castle for this before. They used Buckingham Palace. And I don't want to say one's better than the other, but they say Windsor Castle is the ultimate, right? So it's going to be nice.
Those are your headlines. Now it is back to Martin.
Thank you, Aaron, and welcome back to Farage. With me tonight, your host, Martin Daubney. We'll be bringing you Nigel Farage's bombshell interview with Lucy Connelly, of course, the woman, the mother, sentenced to 31 months in prison for her online post during the Southport riots. You're not going to want to miss this.
When I wrote that tweet, I was just so emotionally charged and upset, and just, I still to this day can't quite believe that somebody's dropped their children off at a dance class, at a Taylor Swift dance class, and never got to pick them up. And the worst part of it is I do know how that feels, and it's just beyond comprehension that happened, you know. And then you begin to think, am I going to drop my child off at gymnastics next week, etc.? Is there some nutter going to go in there and do the same thing? Is it safe? Can I let them go? And all this crazy stuff goes through your head, and it just sent me into, for want of a better word, an overdrive, really. I was just...
And you had lost a child yourself.
I have lost a child. It was just almost like sheer panic.
It's Lucy Connelly's most intimate and revealing interview yet. That's to come later on the show. But first, Keir Starmer is fighting for his political career once again as the House of Commons today held an emergency debate over his appointment of Lord Mandelson as his US ambassador. And here is a blistering critique from the SNP leader, Stephen Flynn.
But the greatest scandal of all, is the fact that the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom appointed a man to that role, knowing that that man had maintained a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, despite the fact that Jeffrey Epstein had been convicted in 2008 in Florida.
And here's a reminder of what the Prime Minister said yesterday on this matter.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him. Because what emerged last week were emails, Bloomberg emails, which showed that the nature and extent of the relationship that Peter Mandelson had with Epstein was far different to what I had understood to be the position when I appointed him.
I didn't know the full truth, and it was probably somebody else's fault. Well, I'm joined now in the studio by my super panel tonight. It's Joe Phillips, the journalist and the former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown. I'm delighted to be joined by Nadhim Zahawi, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer. Welcome to you both. Nadhim, I'm going to start with you. There seems to be a pattern with Sir Keir Starmer. Something terrible happens and he blames somebody else. You think that's going to happen once again here?
I think it's extraordinary that he's reached this stage in, 13 months? It took us about 14 years to get to this level of chaos. And he's done it in record time. I think a couple of things. One, my observation is Keir is terrible at choosing people that he trusts and brings into number 10. You know, he brought in Morgan McSweeney, who took great pleasure in being referred to as the master of the dark arts by giving Sue Gray the boot, getting rid of Sue. Fantastic plotting. And for those on the inside, they will tell you, it was a masterclass. So he clearly admired Morgan, that is, Peter Mandelson, who I think the Spectator described as the adjacent nonce this week. That's the level of relationship he had with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted paedophile. So I think what will happen, my very strong hunch will be Morgan will be thrown under a bus by the end of this week or next week, if the story carries on. Keir will be hoping that obviously the President Trump's visit will move the agenda, as number 10 always hopes that, if they can just survive the extra few days, they'll get through this and you guys will get bored and move on. I don't think this is moving on. I think what happened today in Parliament is incredible. I mean, who's the minister who's going to take responsibility in the Foreign Office and resign? Who's the civil servant, the senior responsible officer, as they're referred to, who took the decision to allow the appointment to go through without, as we've heard today from Emily Thornberry, a proper vetting of Peter Mandelson? All these questions are going to dog Starmer through this next 48 hours when he's supposed to be focusing on the relationship with America. The excuse was, we heard earlier this week, is they appointed him because the relationship with the United States is so important that we need someone, a heavy hitter like Mandelson, to handle it. It looks like it's just backfired terribly.
May I ask you, Nadhim Zahawi, how many times can bodies go under the bus before the public says, well, what about the bus driver? It's the Prime Minister.
Well, this is the thing. I think this is almost existential now, because not only is it the public looking at this and saying, we've had a terrible budget, jobs are being lost because of what the Chancellor's done. He's now being hit by the left. You've got a sort of fragmentation on the left. You've got the Greens, the Corbyn, your party lot. You've got, a faction in the Labour Party which seems to be incredibly strong because they stopped all the cost savings that the Chancellor wanted to put through, which is putting even more pressure on Rachel Reeves. All that fragmentation will end up making Keir Starmer more and more vulnerable. What I'm amazed at is it happened so quickly. And I think that only goes back to his instinct, or lack of instinct, for choosing the right people to surround himself, in number 10. I think he made a mistake by listening to Morgan and sacking Sue. And from there on began the downfall.
Joe Phillips, let's bring you in now. Sue Reid bit the bullet. Paul Ovenden yesterday bit the bullet. A director of strategy about the Diane Abbott misogyny. Now, if it's true, a lot of people are saying Morgan McSweeney might be the next to go off the top of the car park. How many people can go before Sir Keir Starmer admits the buck stops with him?
But the thing that I find so extraordinary is that, one of the criticisms levelled at Keir Starmer is that he's so cautious. He's got a walloping great majority. He could do anything he wants if he showed a bit of discipline and a bit of ruthlessness with his own party. He hasn't done that, and this sort of loyally considered, and yet he makes such terrible errors of judgment. And Nadhim and I, who have been around Westminster for far many more years than either of us could possibly be old enough to remember, the first rule is somebody says to you, a close friend or an advisor, well, how's that going to look? Because we all knew.
Have to interject. Have some breaking news for you now, and it's this. An Eritrean man will not be deported to France on Wednesday under the government's one-in, one-out policy after he won his High Court bid to have the removal temporarily blocked. The Home Office defended the case, saying that it was reasonable to expect the man to claim asylum in France. Just read that again. Breaking news. An Eritrean man will not be deported to France. Of course, this is following 2 unsuccessful attempts to get flights off the ground on Wednesday, that's tomorrow, under the government's one-in, one-out policy after he won his High Court bid to have the removal temporarily blocked. The Home Office defended the case, saying that it was reasonable to expect the man to claim asylum in France. Can I get some quick reaction, if I could, from you there, please, Naheem Zahawi? Once again, we have this pilot scheme where the pilots can't take off. The human rights lawyers have got Sir Keir Starmer, the ultimate human rights lawyer, by the nose.
Predictable and unbelievable. Predictable because on the night of the election, Keir Starmer threw away all the hard work of having the Rwanda deal in place to process people in Rwanda. And I predicted on that night that this will come back and damage him, and if not take him down completely. And I think ultimately it will. Unbelievable, because, you know, again, what minister is going to resign over this when you had, the spectacle of 2 planes with journalists being taken out to show them that this thing is working, having 0, not a single illegal migrant being sent back. Who's the senior responsible officer, as they call them in the civil? If this was in the private sector, the senior responsible manager would tender his resignation tonight, right? When I did the vaccine programme, the senior responsible officer was Emily Lawson. I deliberately did 2 things. 1, make sure she had her team and everything she needed in place to be able to deliver for the country and vaccinate the nation. But 2, I put her in front of the cameras so the nation knew which civil servant was the highest ranking, and coincidentally, she came from the private sector. And by the way, went back to the private sector after because she was so fed up with government because she ran the delivery unit, but nothing was happening.
OK.
So who's the SRO? This is the question tonight, right? And who's the minister who's going to resign?
OK, thank you very much. We have to leave it there. We've got so much to pack into tonight's show. Thank you very much, Naheem and Joe. Now, coming up on Farage in just a moment, Lucy Connelly will be giving her most heartfelt and emotional interview yet.
So where do we draw the line, Lucy? Do you think in retrospect that what you said was insightful?
I'll find out the shocking answer to that bombshell question next. Plus, we'll also be continuing on that. Breaking news about the government's plan to deport migrants back to France is completely and utterly failing. That's next.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show Live starts Monday night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me tonight, your host Martin Daubney, where we bring you that Nigel Farage's bombshell interview with Lucy Connelly, the woman who was sentenced, the mother of course, to 31 months in prison for her online post during the Southport riots. You're not going to want to miss it. Here's a taster.
Yes, it wasn't until Southport that the Prime Minister was called two-tier care. We started talking about two-tier policing, two-tier sentencing.
We see it all the time, don't we? Every day at the minute is.
Well, I think we do.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I had death threats last week on TikTok in particular, to which the police have said that didn't meet the bar of acceptability. We're all over the place, aren't we?
So what does meet the bar then? So me sending one tweet, bearing in mind I'd gone 42 years in my life without ever being in trouble or breaking the law or putting such a tweet on X, or, you know, that instantly hits the bar.
And that's coming later in the show. Stick around. But before we get to that, yet more terrible news for Sir Keir Starmer. Some breaking news now, and it's this. An Eritrean man will not be deported to France on Wednesday, tomorrow, under the government's one-in, one-out policy, after he won his High Court bid to have the removal temporarily blocked. Another victory for the lawyers. The Home Office defended the case, saying that it was reasonable to expect the man to claim asylum in France. Well, I'm still joined by my panel now. It's Joe Phillips, the journalist and the former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown, and of course Nadhim Zahawi, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer. Let's get some reaction to you, Joe Phillips. The bad news simply keeps coming like a giant snowball as Keir Starmer. 2 flights have been prevented from being taken off. One yesterday, one today. 0 illegal immigrants have got off the ground. And now this ridiculous, frankly, news that an Eritrean has won his case. 0 out of 3. A huge embarrassment for the Labour Party.
Of course it is embarrassing. But, you know, they're not the first government to have this. You know, not one single person went to Rwanda on the much vaunted, hugely expensive thing that, you know, myself included, thought was a bit of a gimmick. I mean, what we have failed to do...
This is a gimmick.
Well, it may well turn out to be a gimmick. It might not be. It's only 3 days in, and so far, yes, they were only going to take half a dozen people.
It's a 100% failure rate.
Well, at the moment it is, but that is only a temporary block. Martin, put it into context. It's only a temporary block. The Home Office will appeal against it. Shabana Mahmood, I think, is much tougher than Yvette Cooper, and I think she's already made it very clear that she will look at human rights legislation that will stop these claims, particularly the claim to a family life, which I understand that wasn't the case with this particular case. But it is difficult. I mean, you know, the government has failed abysmally, and it is a huge issue. But it has been a huge issue for many, many years when the Tories were in government and they let the backlog grow and grow and grow.
OK, got some more breaking news for you now. A very, very busy evening in politics, and it's this. The suspect in Charlie Kirk's assassination has been charged with multiple offences in Utah, including aggravated murder, obstruction of justice and witness tampering. Officials in Utah have also confirmed they will seek the death penalty for Charlie Kirk's assassin. Of course, that is Tyler Robinson. Just to repeat that huge breaking news coming in, and that is this. The suspect in Charlie Kirk's assassination has been charged with multiple offences in Utah, including aggravated murder, obstruction of justice and witness tampering. And perhaps the most dramatic point here to underline, officials in Utah have also confirmed they will seek the death penalty for Tyler Robinson, the assassin of Charlie Kirk. Let's get some immediate reaction from my panel on a very busy breaking news evening. Nadeem Zahawi, the death penalty once again rearing its head. Of course, it is legal in Utah, it is routine, and even death by firing squad can occur in Utah. Donald Trump said he'd push for the death penalty. The governor of Utah said the same. Do you think this is the correct outcome?
I do. I think what Tyler Robinson did was abhorrent, awful. And Utah and the people of America will feel that this is the right decision. I have to say, it's worth us just pausing a moment and thinking about his father, Tyler Robinson's father, who took him down and then turned him in, knowing full well that the likely outcome is probably the death penalty for what he'd done, for what he had committed, an awful, heinous murder of Charlie Kirk. So, you know, it's terrible. Terrible for America, terrible for democracy. If, you know, you get shot for your views, then actually the right answer is you have to pay the price.
Joe Phillips, an eye for an eye in this case. Do you agree with that?
No, I'm completely opposed to the death penalty in all circumstances. And I think it's very unfortunate, and I really respect what Nadeem's just said, and it's absolutely right. There are many people who will have been affected by this inadvertently, like the Tyler Robinson's own family, as well as obviously Charlie Kirk's widow. And it's a real shame that Donald Trump didn't use his opportunity to actually say, and now we need to honour Charlie Kirk's memory because he was somebody who wanted to have conversations with people, and let's talk, let's tone it down, let's have debate, let's have civility. But he didn't. Instead of putting oil on troubled waters, what he did was put oil on and then throw a match on it. And it's a real shame because we've heard J.D. Vance talking about doxing anyone who is celebrating or, you know,
well, why not?
Welcoming.
He's talking about people on the public dime. If you work for the public sector and you're glorifying the assassination of somebody simply for disagreeing with you, why should you be paid by the state?
No, you know my views on social media, Martin. I mean, I've said it enough on here. But actually, a good thing, and the governor of Utah was really good, and he said, actually, sometimes people need to get off social media and maybe have a conversation.
But the governor of Utah also called for the death penalty.
Well, he may well have done, but
ultimately, he's responsible for that. That's been the decision that's been passed down.
Yeah, and I can tell you that even if the death penalty is sentenced, if that is a sentence given, you know he will be on death row for years and years and years and years, because how many people in America have been on death row for years and years and years for appeals?
Nadeem Zahawi, let's bring you back in now. Of course, the conversation is bound to turn to, should we be reconsidering the death penalty in the United Kingdom? It's something for a long time a lot of people have been opposed to, but I wonder if times are a-changing.
So it's almost, you know, when people are upset and emotional and emotions are running high, it's easy to say we need the death penalty back. My issue with it, and I like to be evidence-driven, you know, I founded a business, YouGov, to sort of give people the research, the evidence, is actually where the death penalty applies, juries were finding it hard to convict because human nature, nobody wants, you know, few people would want that on their conscience.
But where the
and
evidence
so
is
you end up with
irrefutable.
Unsafe.
Well, the evidence is
outcomes.
irrefutable like this.
This is very different. I think this is, in my view, the right outcome. And I suspect if you talked to Tyler Robinson's father, he knew this would be the outcome. But he did the right thing. It was abhorrent. It was criminal to a man who just wanted to have a conversation on a university campus, you know, who travelled to Oxford and other places to have these conversations, to be killed so horrifically in front of his young daughters is
But Nadine,
it does deserve the death penalty.
What about Melinda, the Minnesota lawmaker, killed in her own home, and her husband?
Equally awful.
You know, and the other senator in Minnesota on that same night who was severely injured. What about Nancy Pelosi and her husband attacked in their own home? Donald Trump didn't mention those. He's turned it into a battle of the left is to blame for this. Tyler Robinson, from what we know, was working alone. He wasn't working with a group of people. He may turn out to have a very, peculiar life and a peculiar view of the world. But I would just say one thing on
I suspect, though, on that, Joe, because it was live and so graphic.
Yes, yeah.
In front of humanity, in front of people.
Yes, of course.
That it was so emotional, I suspect that's what's driven most. A lot of that. That doesn't mean all the other crimes should not be condemned.
No,
I think it's right to condemn
as was, the killing of David Amos and Joe Cox in this country.
Absolutely right.
But I would just say one thing on the death penalty. There is never going to be, maybe in this case, Nadine would argue against it, but unless you have got a 150% guarantee.
Well, this is.
But you asked about this country, Martin. What about Lucy Letby? If it turns out in years down the road that actually she wasn't guilty, as some people think.
What about Axel Ruda-Cabana?
Well, I think the death penalty has no place in a civilised society.
We have to move on, leave it there. We've got so much news to fit in tonight, as well as that astonishing breaking news that Charlie Kirk's killer faces the death penalty. Tyler Robinson, also a reminder of the other breaking news tonight. An Eritrean man will not be deported to France on Wednesday under the government's so-called one-in, one-out policy after he won his High Court bid to have the removal temporarily blocked. The Home Office defended the case, saying that it was reasonable to expect the man to claim asylum in France. Let's move on now, because it's the moment you've all been waiting for on an action-packed show already. It's the moment that Nigel Farage sits down with Lucy Connelly for her most heartfelt and revealing interview yet. And I should say this interview includes some strong language and viewer discretion is advised.
Well, it's the day that President Trump arrives in the UK for his second state visit. And, of course, he's the head of an administration who have expressed some very grave concerns about free speech in the United Kingdom. Now, this debate slowly had been going on for the last few years with the rise of non-crime hate incidents, the police knocking on people's doors. But there was one particular incident that led to an explosion of debate around this issue. It was, of course, what happened in that appalling July day in 2024 when those 3 young girls were murdered in Southport. And within a week, we had the Prime Minister being called to tier, Keir, and we had a series of arrests and imprisonments made. And ever since that time, this debate has been very, very live. On top of that, we have the Online Safety Act that came into being. And I've been involved in this argument myself, both here in the UK and, of course, across in the US. But there's one name that comes out of all of this, and it is, of course, Lucy Connelly. As you well know, she was sentenced to 31 months in prison for a tweet that she put out on that day. What we're going to do here on GB News is find out who is Lucy Connelly, what were her motivations for that tweet, and what was it like to face a 31-month prison sentence for one tweet. Lucy joins me in the studio. There's an awful lot of things have been said about you, some of them nice, some of them not so nice, as you well know. From what I know, you live in the heart of England, married to Ray, a Conservative councillor, a mother, a childminder over the course of the last 10 years. Have you yourself been, on X, Twitter as it was, have you been very political in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I get involved in the politics and a good old debate on X. I'm known for that, but always never personally attack anybody. Always keep to the facts. I accept that we're never all going to agree, and that's absolutely fine. But I don't wish harm on anyone that doesn't agree with my opinions and my political opinions, as has been wished on me and yourself. Yeah. And that's wrong.
No, and I mean, in fact, in your work as a childminder, a Nigerian GP whose daughter you cared for described you as the kindest British person I know. So that was quite a testament. We were all you know, deeply shocked by what happened on that day. And it was later on in that day at 8:30 in the evening that you put out this particular post. Mass deportations now. Set fire to all the effing hotels full of the bastards for all I care. While you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them. I feel physically sick knowing what these families will now have to endure. If that makes me racist, so be it. And that's what you put out at 8:30 that evening. Clearly, what you said there was intemperate, because what I found interesting was that 3.5 hours later, having taken the dog for a walk, you deleted the message.
Yeah, I did, because as I've said before, it wasn't my finest moment. And I know that was an awful thing to say and it wasn't the right thing to say. So, you know, when I wrote that tweet, I was just so emotionally charged and upset and just... I still, to this day, can't quite believe that somebody's dropped their children off at a dance class, at a Taylor Swift dance class, and never got to pick them up. And the worst part of it is I do know how that feels. And it's just beyond comprehension that happened, you know. And then you begin to think, am I going to drop my child off at gymnastics next week, etc.? Is there some nutter going to go in there and do the same thing? Is it safe? Can I let them go? And all this crazy stuff goes through your head, and it just sent me into, for want of a better word, an overdrive, really. I was just...
And you had lost a child yourself.
I have lost a child. And it was just almost like sheer panic, and I can't even describe it. I was just so... And still am.
You obviously realised a few hours later that what you'd done was wrong.
So, you know, I'd calmed down and I thought to myself, well, gosh, Lucy, you can't take that down. Of which I did.
Which you did.
I didn't need to be prompted to take that down. I didn't need anyone to tell me that was the wrong thing to say.
You knew. Okay.
I didn't engage in any of the comments and I just took it down.
Yeah. And yet, within days, you've been arrested. You're charged with a category A1 offence, an imprisonable offence. The bit that I don't understand is you pleaded guilty.
Yeah.
Were you bullied into that in some way?
Oh, I wouldn't use the word bullied, but they'd remanded me. So when you're remanded, they've got you, so to speak. They refused me bail twice.
Yeah.
The only alternative left was to go to High Court bail at a cost of £10,000, and I honestly believe that they wouldn't have granted me bail. They're making it quite clear that they wanted me remanded and they wanted me, you know, to serve a custody.
So you could have stayed on remand until the trial came up, which could have been
a year, 2 years. You know,
yeah.
It could. You're looking at the average. People are waiting for a year minimum for a trial at the moment. There's a backlog in the court. So even had I have gone not guilty and gone to trial, there's a massive chance I'd have been still sitting there today in prison.
On remand. Yeah.
Or I'd have done the same amount of time.
Yeah.
I just feel like they had me over a barrel, really, and that, you know, as we've discussed before, the legal advice was, you know, you're best to go guilty, you'll get your credit.
Wasn't the fact that you deleted this tweet just a few hours later, I mean, wasn't that taken into mitigation
at all? They didn't care. There was lots of mitigating factors. They had lots of previous tweets that they'd been given from my Twitter where I was condoning racism, where I was condoning violence. There was a tweet, because obviously the tweet that I made was made on the day that those children were murdered. And obviously the riots didn't start then for probably a good week afterwards. And I tweeted as soon as they started rioting in the Southport, they kicked off in Southport and they were throwing bricks, and I was just like, oh goodness, please stop this. This is not the way. No one's going to listen to you. Obviously, they had that tweet that wasn't taken into consideration.
And it seemed that they really wanted you, because quite remarkable that the head of the Crown Prosecution Special Crime and Counter-Terrorism Unit released a statement saying, during a police interview, Lucy Connelly stated she had strong views on immigration, told officers she did not like immigrants, and claimed that children were not safe from them.
Of which I didn't say. And it's not about liking the immigrants, is it? I'm sure most of them are very nice.
So you're saying that what a senior figure in the Crown Prosecution Service said is not true.
It's not true, and I can prove that. I stand by that. They've got a transcript of my interview in the police. I gave a full and frank interview, as advised by the solicitor that was there. At no point in the interview did she kick me under the table or stop the interview or anything like that.
31 months you're sentenced to, and we'll come to prison in a minute. Last week, we saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Somebody who held very strong Christian conservative views, had strong views on abortion, strong views on trans rights, other things like that, which has opened up this massive debate on free speech. And I went to Washington a couple of weeks ago and appeared before the House Judiciary Committee. I wanted you to come with me, but your terms of release wouldn't allow it.
No, I'm on licence conditions which forbid me to leave in the country at the minute, so, yeah.
So where do we draw the line, Lucy? Do you think in retrospect that what you said was insightful?
I suppose it could have, it could have been seen as insightful, but then there's no evidence to suggest anyone acted on that. And like I said, it should have been taken into consideration that I did take the tweet down, and I was remorseful, and I've never, ever...
See, the funny thing is, it wasn't until Southport that the Prime Minister was called two-tier care. We started talking about two-tier policing, two-tier sentencing.
Well, we see it all the time, don't we? Every day at the minute.
Well, I think we do, because, I had death threats last week on TikTok in particular, to which the police have said that didn't meet the bar of acceptability. We're all over the place, aren't we?
So what does meet the bar then? So me sending one tweet, bearing in mind I'd gone 42 years of my life without ever being in trouble or breaking the law or putting such a tweet on X, or, that instantly hits the bar. But somebody, and after everything that's been going on in the past 12 months in the UK, surely we should all know better than to put out tweets and TikToks like that. So
abuse is fine, it seems to me. So-and-so, we think this about you, that about you. I think you've got to live with that.
Well, it's horrific. It's horrific that anybody would wish harm, just death, harm on you, harm on your family, because they don't agree with your views. I mean,
and that's where your tweet, to be fair, I think did go over the line of what's acceptable. But you recognised that yourself and withdrew it, and there should have been some allowance made for that. Well, it's a debate that's going to go on and on and on. Prison. What's prison like?
Oh, what's prison like? It's like nothing you'll ever experience ever in your life before. It's interesting. It's very interesting. It's very sad. As I've spoke about. There's a lot of people that shouldn't be in there, and for me, it's changed my opinion on the system, because I was that person that was like, well, they're all in prison. They've been to the courts. They're guilty. They should be in prison. Actually, the reality is very different. You've got... I'm talking about the women's estate here. I can't comment on the men's estate because obviously I wasn't there. Really, really sad cases. And you just think... And women are factually going to get longer for the same crime as what a man...
Really?
Absolutely. It's almost like they have this attitude of, well, you're a woman, you're a wife and you're a mother and you should know better. And I see that inside the prison as well, with the way prison officers behave and the way male prison officers behave within a women's prison. And it's like, well, they're men, aren't they? So it's okay. But if it's you, because you're a woman, you should know better. That's what I witnessed. That's what I witnessed in the system. I think the system's very sexist.
Did you see attempts at rehabilitation in prison?
No.
No.
There's no time, there's no money and there's no time. With the best will in the world, you can't recruit enough prison officers at the moment. So they're just keeping the peace and making sure everybody's safe and okay. That's all they've got time to do. And obviously, like with everything else in this gone world mad, there's paperwork for everything, boxes to tick for everything. But I think certainly in Peterborough, the waiting, it's like the waiting list when you first go in for mental health is like 300-400 on the list, for...
I take the view that there's about 10% of prisoners commit 50% of the crime, and I think the 3 strikes and you're out thing that America introduced would work. But I do agree that if people go in for a short prison sentence for the first time, they might come out worse than they went in. That's kind of what you're saying.
Well, absolutely, especially on the male side. They send like gang members in and they're just making bigger gang members and almost like joining forces.
Well, Lucy, we've spent just a quarter of an hour on this. going through your story. We could talk for hours about it. You seem to be happy and optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, I
Relieved.
refuse to be bitter. I'm back with my family. I've got an amazing family, my daughter and my husband, and then my friends and family have been supportive. You know, this, as I've said before, this is not the worst thing I've ever been through in my life. I've been through far worse. And all I can do now, you know, I did my time, and all I can do now is try and, you know, make a positive out of this and push.
So what does
for
Lucy
prison
Connelly
reform.
do next?
Well, as I said, I'd really love to work with you guys on prison reform, because we all know you're getting in next, you know. I think I'm fairly confident that the next party in will be the Reform Party. And, you know, I personally welcome that, because we need some massive change. We can't keep doing the same thing and, you know, expecting a different result. Things aren't working in this country. The prison system definitely isn't working. So we need to have a different, you know, attack at it and fix it. I mean, it can't be fixed overnight. We've got a lot to do, but we can certainly have a good go.
Thank you. Well, folks, that was Lucy Connelly. It is the most extraordinary story, how somebody living a very straightforward, relatively normal life with all its ups and downs is suddenly thrust into a level of fame that she couldn't have even believed of. I just hope and pray that we continue to have this proper debate about free speech, about what is acceptable, about what is not. And I think we're going to have to rethink many of the laws we've got in this country.
Wow, well, that did not fail to disappoint. And once again, our apologies for some of the strong language in the interview there. And coming up in just a moment, we're debating on the case of Lucy Connelly live here in the studio. Is she a free speech martyr, a political prisoner? That's next here on Farage.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, welcome back to Farage. With me tonight, your host, Martin Daubney. Well, you've just heard that full bombshell Lucy Connelly interview. I should say that the Crown Prosecution Service has not changed its account of the original police interview with Lucy Connelly, despite her denial in that interview there with Nigel Farage. Let's get some reaction from my panel. And I'm joined by the journalist and the former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown, Joe Phillips, and Nadhim Zahawi, of course, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer. Joe Phillips, I'm going to come to you first. You don't seem to have a great deal of sympathy for Lucy Connelly.
No, I don't. Absolutely don't have any sympathy for her. I think, maybe the length of the jail term was perhaps a little disproportionate. But this is a lesson to people who will leap onto Twitter or X or whatever machine media they want to use without stopping to think. She said herself, 3 hours later, she thought, I shouldn't have done it. Well, you know what? Maybe everybody should stop before they actually press send or post it. She also had posted racist and unpleasant comments before, and when she knew that there was Ofsted, because she was a childminder, so they would have been involved, and the police were getting involved. She also sent a message to a friend saying, oh, this is going to come back and bite me on the arse, but I'm going to play the mental health
Apologies
card.
for the fruity language for the first time in this episode. Go on.
No, but not for the first time, but that was her actual quote. And she said, I'm going to play the mental health card. I mean, there is no excuse for what she said. And I think, what I feel sad for her now, though, Martin, is that she is, like so many people, she is a celebrity. She's got her Andy Warhol's 15 minutes of fame. She will be used as a poster girl by people who will think that, she's a champion of free speech and all the rest of it. If she wants to do something useful, has she actually... She talks about being in prison. Well, OK. Has she actually been to talk to the refugees, the asylum seekers that she so loathed, that she would have been happy to see them burnt to death in their hostels? I just find it so abhorrent what she said.
Nadhim Zahawi, let's bring you in now. Everybody, Nigel Farage, joined in there, and Lucy Connelly herself said, of course, she regrets what she said. This is about proportionality. It's about the punishment meted out. Nadhim Zahawi, do you think that she was treated very unfairly?
I do. I think watching that very powerful interview, one, she admitted guilt, that she made a mistake. She took it down. It's a disproportionate response by the state, in my view. No wonder your viewers think that there is two-tier policing, two-tier criminal justice system. By the way, not just your viewers, most MPs would probably think it is too... I've had, when I was a Member of Parliament, people post videos on social media inciting violence against me and my family. I call the police in. It's normally sort of lots of hand-wringing and being told that, it's in the too difficult to handle box. Not all the time. At times the police were brilliant. But to sentence someone to 31 months in prison when they took the tweet down, when clearly she's lost a child, she's emotional about these 7, 8, 9-year-olds being massacred, I think your viewers will look at that and think, you know what, it's just not right. The state, it feels like the state goes after the soft, easy targets, and I wonder if versus the too hard to go after criminal element in our society.
I wonder if it's a bit more than that, because everything... It didn't happen in a vacuum. It was of a moment where Sir Keir Starmer had to be seen to clamp down with almighty...
That's my point. So strength. My point is, it just feels...
Was it disproportionate?
It feels like, literally, we're an easy target, an easy win to try and, flex... As in modern sort of language that kids speak in now, right, and demonstrate that we're going to come down hard. She's admitted that she made a mistake. She may have posted racist comments before, but she also just said that she has in the past posted things about a tolerant society and wanting people to feel equal. I'm not excusing her mistake or a crime, but the punishment doesn't fit. The crime, and I think most people, sensible people watch that and go, do you know what? She was emotional, she's lost a child, she says something really stupid and, completely hurtful and, horrible, but she's admitted it.
She admitted herself tonight that it was insightful. She admits that.
No, I know she does.
She sees the error of her ways,
And
but you still don't forgive.
Well, I think the thing is...
People deserve a second chance in life.
She's got a second chance.
I put that in my book. There are no superheroes in politics or elsewhere.
She's got her second chance, and she's getting a lot of support from lots of people.
But she was put inside for 31 months.
Yes, but she didn't serve 31 months.
She was on reprimand, refused bail over a tweet.
But I think there are questions about her legal representation, and I don't know enough about who was representing her, whether she actually had legal representation.
There's a huge question to ask there.
But there is a huge question there, because it is quite clear that, you know, had she pleaded not guilty, the outcome might have been different. And, you know, whatever went on, she's accusing the CPS of stuff that they're denying, which I would have thought was silly when you're on licence. But I would just say, you know, when you talk about miscarriages of justice, think about the postmasters and postmistresses, some of whom who have died, some of whom have committed suicide because of the appalling miscarriage.
Very laudable, but that's deflecting.
No,
Can
it's
I please
not.
ask you? I've got one question. I want to ask you an important question.
Yeah.
She said there that she would like to work with Reform to help them on their government policy. Do you think that that's an acceptable or a good thing to do? Should Reform welcome Lucy Connelly into their fold, so to speak?
I can't speak for Reform. They've just welcomed Danny Kruger into their fold, who is actually extremely knowledgeable about prisons and used to run a prison charity. And that's how I know him, actually. Not because I was in prison, but, you know, because that's...
So that's a no?
But
you don't think you should be involved?
I think that's what I mean, Martin, that she's going to be used and the bubble will burst, because it's, you know, you go into the spotlight, she will have everything scrutinised. She'd be advised to keep her head down a bit, I think.
Nadeem Zahawi, do you think she deserves a second chance, and is a sensible deployment of her experience to help with Nigel Farage and Reform UK?
Yes and yes. I think, you know, what came across there, this is the first time I watch Lucy Connelly in an in-depth interview, and well done to GBNews and Nigel Farage to really go through those questions with her. What I was struck by is, you know, this is an ordinary woman who was clearly emotional, made a mistake, but has seen prison from the inside. And I think it's worth having that experience.
Great. Thank you very much, Nadeem Zahawi, Joe Phillips. Excellent episode. And talking of which, up next, State of the Nation with Tom Harwood. Tom, what's on your menu?
Blimey, so much breaking news this evening. This 25-year-old lone Eritrean migrant who has won in the High Court to delay, at the very least, his deportation to France. Why? Because of the real risk of destitution were he returned to France.
Absurd.
Does this show that our benefit system here is far too generous compared to what migrants would be receiving in France? Big questions there. Also news on the suspect in the Charlie Kirk shooting. Of course, that charge of aggravated murder, a charge that carries a felony, that carries the death penalty in Utah. Also a note left to that individual's transgender roommate. What did the note say? We'll be revealing all. Richard Tice also on the programme. He spoke in the emergency debate today. So much to cover.
Thank you, Tom. We've got to go. Nadeem Zahawi, Joe Phillips. Excellent. State of the Nation up next with Tom Harwood.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. It's been, by and large, a fine day today. We've seen one or two heavy showers, but more wet and windy weather coming in tonight, making for a soggy start tomorrow. It should brighten up in a few places, but some areas staying damp, particularly in Wales, where we have a weather warning. And here's the reason why. Low pressure is moving in, pushing away a little ridge of high pressure. The rain already creeping into parts of the west. Gets heavier and more persistent through the night. The brighter colours suggesting some pretty heavy downpours for Wales, Northern Ireland and southwest Scotland. That rain filtering into eastern England by the end of the night. Northern Scotland stays largely dry. Clear skies here could allow temperatures to dip to single figures, but most places actually turning quite a bit milder through the night. So a humid feel in the morning and a pretty wet start. A lot of spray and surface water around on the roads in the morning. We have two Met Office yellow warnings in place over parts of Wales in the south and in the northwest, where that rain could cause some disruption through the day. Already clearing from Northern Ireland by 7 or 8 o'clock, so turning a bit drier and brighter here. That rain slowly creeping north across Scotland, but northern Scotland, another place that should have, by and large, a dry start. But that's the exception to the otherwise pretty soggy rule. Not just wet, but also really quite windy. today. The heavy rain, though, should start to ease. I think the rain is likely to linger in parts of Wales and southwest England and edge into northern Scotland. But southern Scotland joins Northern Ireland in turning drier and brighter. North Wales, northern England also cheering up quite a bit through the day. It's going to feel quite humid and with a bit of brightness in northeast England, 21, perhaps even 22 degrees Celsius, just about possible. But we'll see more rain coming in on Thursday. Now the rain band shifted a bit further north. Again, North Wales seeing some heavy bursts, along with northwest England, parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland. Northern Scotland looking largely dry on Thursday, and much of the south as well. And notice those temperatures ticking up, feeling quite warm in the south to end this week. Goodbye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.